Welcome to Guide Mia. Today we're going to talk about submitting a non-AlignerBot case to a dental lab. This is for clinicians, dentists, orthodontists, prosthodontists, surgeons, sending an ortho, implant, or any custom lab service case to a partner lab. Anything, in other words, that is not an AlignerBot AI case. That one has its own lecture. By the end, you'll know how to fill the new case form for a manually designed case, how it differs from the AlignerBot intake, how to find your lab, how to pick a service, how pricing and consent work, and what status the case lands in after you submit. Plan about 10 minutes for the first case, 3 to 5 per case after that. Follow along on screen, or listen now and read the written guide later. First, the boundary. Non-AlignerBot covers everything a human designer builds: an orthodontic plan with brackets or retainers, an implant surgical guide, crown and bridge, dentures, night guards, custom trays, whatever your lab offers. The practical difference from AlignerBot is bigger than it sounds. Because a person reads your submission, free text instructions are perfectly fine. There is no structured artifact requirement anywhere in this flow. AlignerBot is the only category that demands machine-readable input, because a bot can only act on what can parse. And here's the orientation that makes the whole thing simple. It's the same new case form either way. The category and service you pick partway through is what reshapes everything after it. For prerequisites. 1. Your Cympha account needs the clinical role. If you signed up as a designer or a lab manager, the new case button simply won't appear on your dashboard. There's a role matrix doc if you're not sure which role you hold. 2. A lab. Either your partner lab is already on Cympha and you know the lab manager's email, or you fall back to Guide Mia's first-party design lab. 3. The files per arch scans for ortho, a CBCT archive plus optical scans for implant, or whatever a custom service asks for. We'll cover the details in step 5. 4. The patient's name, gender, date of birth, and chief complaints are optional, but they land on the lab slip and the designer's planning notes. And don't wait for perfection. You can open the form before the files are ready, because your in-progress work is preserved while you upload. Step 1. Sign into app.cympha.com and click New Case at the top right of the dashboard, or go straight to the new case address. The header reads New Case. The moment the page loads, a draft case is reserved on the back end. That single fact explains most of this form's good manners. You can drop files immediately, fill sections in any order, and take your time. Everything attaches to the draft as you go. And nothing reaches the lab until you press Submit Case. Until that click, the lab doesn't know the case exists. The first section is titled Lab, with 2 paths. Path 1, Guide Mia Design Lab, the first-party service. Click that card if you want to send a case to Guide Mia, where ortho and implant work is human-designed. Path 2, the common one, your own lab. Use the search box. It finds labs by lab name, or by the lab manager's name or email. And the most reliable key is the manager's exact Cympha email, the one they sign in with. Pick from the drop-down. Keep in mind there is no public directory. You have to know your lab manager. If the search comes up empty, ask them to confirm the email they registered with. A small typo, like Gmail versus Google Mail or a trailing period, is the usual culprit. Step 3, the fork in the road. What appears here depends on the lab you just picked. If you chose Guide Mia Design Lab, 3 category tiles appear: ortho, AlignerBot, implant. For today's flow, you click ortho for an orthodontic plan with brackets, retainers, or manual aligner design, or implant for surgical guide. If you chose your own lab, you get a service row with 1 button per service the lab has set up, named exactly as the lab named them. Things like clear aligners, crown and bridge, implant prosthetics, night guard, surgical guide, custom impression trays. A tile may also show a price the lab has published. Pick exactly one service. From that moment, the rest of the form reshapes itself around what that service expects. Step 4 is the intake shortcut. Under AI extraction, there's a paste box. Drop in the clinical paragraph you already have: 58-year-old female, missing 2 lower molars, drilling sleeves available, that kind of note, and click extract. For ortho or implant under Guide Mia, the parser fills the structured field below. For a custom lab service, it fills the lab's own template fields where it can map them. And if the lab never uploaded an order form, you'll see a message saying the service has no template, so fill the general instructions instead. Review every field afterwards. The parser is good for the obvious stuff, but the lab's designer will read what you submit verbatim. And remember the freedom this flow gives you. For a custom service, you can simply type free text instructions. No structured file, no special format. A human designer reads your prose. Step 5, the files. 3 ways in. Drop them on the drop zone, paste from the clipboard, or, if you've paired the Cympha Agent Manager on a desktop, click Upload via Agent. Once you've picked a service, a suggested files checklist appears under the drop zone, and each row turns green as a matching file is recognized. What you upload depends on the service, but here are the common expectations. For an ortho case, upper STL, lower STL, a bite scan, intraoral photos, and ideally a panoramic X-ray or a CBCT for diagnosis. For an implant case, a CBCT zip. That's the full DICOM series, zipped, which most CBCT machines export directly, plus upper and lower STL, and ideally a planned restoration scan or wax up. If you want the exact format expectations for any of those, the docs have a file formats reference that spells them out. For crown and bridge, dentures, guards, splints, and custom appliances, whatever the lab listed in their suggested files, typically the optical scan and the bite, plus any photos or prescriptions. And do drop in the prescription or order form itself, the original PDF, or even a photo of your handwritten prescription. The lab keeps it on file. Files keep uploading in the background while you continue filling the form, so you don't have to wait for the upload bar to finish before you press Submit Case. That suggested files checklist deserves a moment, because it changes how confident you can be at submit time. In the paper world, you find out a file is missing when the lab calls you 2 days later. Here, the form tells you before you submit. Each expected file has a row, and the rows turn green as your uploads are recognized. One practical tip feeds it: descriptive file names. A file called upper_arch.stl gets matched. A camera roll name may not, and any language works. And if a row stays unticked, don't panic. Matching is deliberately cautious, and the lab receives every file you uploaded either way. Step 6. The clinical content. The patient information block asks for the name. That's required, plus gender, date of birth, and chief complaints. Then the treatment parameters and their shape follows your service. For Guide Me a ortho or implant, it's the structured form you'd recognize from a lab slip. Arch ranges, occlusal classes, implant brand, surgical kit, drilling sleeves. For implant, you also choose the deliverable tier, a preliminary plan, a Guide Me a report, or the full project, with checkboxes near the bottom of the block. For custom lab service, one of two shapes appears. If the lab uploaded their order form, you see a structured version of their own fields. Fill it as you would their paper form. If not, you get a general instructions box. Type what you'd write on a paper requisition: shade, material, contact preferences, occlusion notes. Finally, the optional expected date, when you'd like it back. The lab reads it as a soft target, not a contract. Step 7. Money and consent, and the sequencing matters. If the service shows a published price, a price and consent checkbox appears so you acknowledge it before submitting. But the binding price is settled later, on the case itself. The lab manager reviews your submission and sends a price. The case's pricing panel shows it as proposed, and you click Accept or Reject. Nothing is charged until you accept. If the lab has opted into payment through Cympha, a Pay button appears after you accept, and you complete a secure checkout. Labs that don't take platform payments arrange payment their own way. Just ask in the case chat. Separately, a privacy checkbox always appears, confirming you have the patient's consent to upload their data and share it with the selected lab. Every consent checkbox shown must be ticked before the Submit button enables. That's the number one reason the button looks dead. Step 8. Click Submit Case at the bottom of the form. If uploads are still in flight, the button shows a small spinner while it waits, and you'll see uploading files until everything has finished and the case is promoted. Then you're navigated to the new case detail page, and the status reads Submitted. From here, the ladder runs on the lab side. Every submitted case starts at Submitted, held by the lab manager. If the lab has a case intaker on the team, the status moves to Intake Review, and the intaker checks the files first. If there's no intaker, it goes straight to designing when a designer is assigned. Meanwhile, the case appears on your own dashboard with its new status. And that row is not just a status light. There's a message button on the row so you can chat with the lab directly, and you can open the case at any time to read the activity log. Then, when a design is ready for you, the status flips to awaiting approval, and you get an email. Open the case and click Review and Approve. How many times you'll do that depends on the category. Guide Me as ortho and implant categories have 2 approval cycles. First the treatment plan, then the appliance design, while custom lab service has a single design approval, where the button simply reads Approve Design. What the Approve, Request Changes, and Escalate to Lab Manager buttons actually do has its own lecture in this series, and its own doc. Let's work through the troubleshooting list. First, The 3 problems that hit you while you're still filling the form. I can't find the lab. The search matches 3 things: the lab name, the lab manager's name, and the lab manager's email. So if none of those turn them up, ask the lab manager to confirm the email shown on their profile page in Cympha and search on that. Remember, there is no public directory. Someone has to tell you. Second, the Submit Case button is disabled. 3 common reasons. The patient name is empty, you haven't picked a service, or you haven't ticked the pricing or privacy consent checkbox. Scroll back up the form and look for the red asterisks. They mark exactly what's missing. Third, the Suggested Files checklist doesn't recognize my upload. Matching is deliberately cautious. When Cympha can't confidently place a file in a slot, it leaves the row unticked rather than guessing wrong. The lab still receives the file either way, so an unticked row is not a block submission. A descriptive file name helps the match, upper_arch.stl, rather than a camera roll name like IMG4567, and any language works for that. And 2 more that come up after the case is on its way. I uploaded the wrong file. Click the trash icon at the end of the file row to delete it, then re-upload the right one. And here's the reassuring part. Uploads and deletes are blocked only once a case is delivered, for a digital case, or canceled. So you can still fix a wrong file after submitting. If the lab is already designing, mention the swap in the case chat as well, so that they pick up the right file rather than carrying on with the old one. Second, my case is stuck in submitted for days. Open the case and use the chat to ping the lab manager. For submitted specifically, the lab manager is the person already holding the case, so a direct chat message is the effective route. There's nobody else in the chain to nudge yet. And that's the full path. Pick the lab, pick the service, let the extractor pre-fill, or just type your instructions, upload against the checklist, settle consent, and submit. 10 minutes the first time, 3 to 5 once it's routine. The thing to appreciate is how much of your existing habit survives. The prescription you'd have written on paper becomes the instructions box, and the pile of files you'd have shipped becomes a checklist that confirms itself. When the case comes back to you at awaiting approval, the approval lecture takes over. And if you're curious what every status means in detail, the case status glossary in the docs has the full map. Every field, checklist row, and dialogue from today is written up at cympha.com. Head to the doc section and open Submit a non-AlignerBot case to a dental lab. This lecture is part of a series covering every Cympha workflow one at a time, so subscribe if you'd like the rest delivered as they land. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.